Hey, I'm Nick Robles, the account manager here at Alter. I'm super excited to be here with my senior sales engineer, Patrick Archer. Patrick, if you'd like to take a few moments to introduce yourself, feel free.
Yeah, hey there, Nick, and thanks for everyone for joining. My name is Patrick Archer. I lead our pre-sales function here at Alter. I am Nick's technical counterpart on the go-to-market team, and we look forward to walking you through some more retail-oriented subject matter today, and then momentarily walking you through the actual Alter platform. So, with that, Nick, I'll pass it over to you to commence.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. Like Patrick just mentioned, today we'll be walking you through a topic that is front of mind for retail organizations, which is how do you protect customer identities without sacrificing the data-driven capabilities your business depends on? In terms of an agenda, we will start with just the core challenges retailers are facing right now between customer privacy and data utility. Then we will look at why the traditional tools most teams reach for are actually falling short. From there, we'll get into how advanced data protection, like tokenization and format-preserving encryption, enables teams to solve these challenges. We'll also touch on a real use case around loyalty, marketing, and analytics. And as Patrick mentioned, we'll close with Patrick taking us through the Alter platform and how we make all this operational without disturbing your existing workflows. And of course, we'll ensure we have plenty of time to answer any questions that come through in the chat. But first, we want to take a look at just the scale of what we're actually dealing with. A single retailer's cloud warehouse can hold anywhere between 10,000 to over 60 million customer records. And over half those brands and retailers are actively sharing first-party consumer data. So this data is already on the move. And yet 91% of consumers worry about whether retailers are doing enough to protect it. And 86% say data protection directly influences how much they trust the brand. So the stakes are real on both sides. The business needs to use data, and the customer's expectations around protecting it has never been higher. And if you're in retail and sitting on this call, you're probably feeling that pressure from both sides as well. And that's the reason this gets so complicated, is because of where the data actually lives and who needs access to it. And really, the tension and the challenges, they come from the fact that PII is not just sitting in one place. And this is something that catches a lot of teams off guard when they really start to map it out. By the time a customer interacts with a retailer, their data has touched loyalty programs, e-commerce platforms, mobile apps, customer service systems, and a data warehouse. And on the access side, you have analysts, marketing teams, AI pipelines, and third-party agencies all needing to work with that data. And honestly, the list of who needs access and wants access to this data is just going to keep growing in these organizations. So this flow is by design. The business can't function without sharing this data, but every handoff is a big risk, which makes the goal not locking down the data, but to let the data flow safely throughout the business. Which really leads us to what teams are actually doing today to solve this and why is it not working? A lot of security teams Patrick and I are speaking with in the field are really forced to choose between either protecting data and using it. And that's a really frustrating position to be in because neither option is actually good for the business. So they reach for a tool like traditional encryption, which doesn't preserve the data utility and disrupts workflows. Or they reach for restricting access, which can create bottlenecks and slows down access to business critical data. And again, we hear this all the time that teams are either sitting on data they cannot use or sharing data they cannot protect. And the insight here is critical. Again, the goal should not be to hide the data. The goal is to hide the identity while preserving the insight. And this is exactly where Alter's advanced data protection comes in. Our format preserving encryption, or FPE, which differs from the traditional encryption we just mentioned because it protects the sensitive data while keeping the data's format and structure intact. So an email will still look like an email, or a phone number will still look like a phone number. That means analytics, joins, and matching all continue to work, and your existing applications are largely unaffected, and the data stays protected inside your data warehouse. Now, tokenization takes a little different approach. It replaces the sensitive values with consistent non-sensitive tokens. And because those tokens are consistent, they preserve the relationship in your data. And this is especially powerful for use cases like data sharing with third parties, where you want that strong separation between your analytics environment and the raw customer identities. Now, these are two different tools, but the goal is the same. Again, your data stays useful and your customers stay protected. And before I pass it over to Patrick to take us through a demo, we wanted to share a real example of this in action. We worked with a retailer that had over 60 million customer records consolidated in Snowflake, with, of course, teams needing regular access to that data. The challenge was restricting access to sensitive PII without breaking the analytics and reporting workflows these teams relied on. And of course, nobody on the team wanted to be the person who broke the marketing team's dashboard. So the solution was a combination of custom masking policies, our format-preserving encryption, policy-based access controls, and real-time visibility into how data was being accessed, which enabled the team to hide identity of the data while preserving the insight they needed for their business. Good data security should really feel invisible to teams using it, and that's exactly what happened here. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Patrick to show you what this looks like in action. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And as Nick just walked through why all these important use cases matter, millions of customer records, you have a variety of different teams. You have analytics folks, data scientists, folks on marketing and sales side. They all need some combination of access to data. You also have partners that you're having to share data with. They need access. And of course, the regulators are always going to be watching. So what I want to do now is actually jump into the Alter Control Center, show you what it looks like, and help you understand when you have proper controls in place, how you can manage these mission critical areas of your data lifecycle. So with that, I'm going to share my screen here. So what you see here again is the Alter Control Center. It's a modularized platform, and it's built to serve every maturation stage of sensitive data handling. So quick orientation, there are four modules through which we're going to run the demo, what we're going to focus on. So four modules, but one workflow. We have data classification here that I'll jump into in a moment. This is where you're going to be able to find your PII. We then have our policy module. That's where you're going to protect it. We have the dashboard module to see what's happening. And then we have audit logs to actually prove that your intended controls are being leveraged uh, per your posture. So I'm going to walk through them in the order a retailer would actually use them. So as I'm landing here on the data classification page, let's unpack this first. So step one, any retailer is going to need to know where their customer data, their PII actually lives. And as the deck showed that Nick just walked through, excuse me, it lives everywhere. That data is in loyalty databases, e-commerce platforms, customer service systems, your warehouses, or consolidated warehouse. There are tens of millions of records that are spread across these systems that are disparate inherently. They were never designed to actually be governed together. So Alter is going to be able to run classification scans across all of your data estate. So there are three modes through which we can offer classification. You can use database native classification like Snowflake native, for example, Google DLP, or Alter's own pattern matching engine, which is regex driven. So most retailers we work with, they use a combination, but I'm going to jump into an example of a scan output for classification. So you can see here we have for a specific series of tables within a database, we have different columns that are flagged. They're tagged by their data class. They're ready for policy to be assigned. This is really the foundation because in Alter, you don't have to write policy against tables. Instead, you can write it against tags that are associated with sensitive PII classifiers. So you can tag your data once, and then it is subsequently governed everywhere autonomously. So tags are a fairly fundamental governance mechanism. Alter is going to be able to provide policy that is driven based on your tag hierarchies, whether that's in, say, Databricks or Snowflake or some of the other prevalent cloud data platforms out there. So This really matters at retail scale because, for example, you have a loyalty database today. Maybe it has 10 tables within it. In 6 months, maybe you'll have a new acquisition, a new partnership, maybe some type of new customer touch point, maybe like a kiosk experience at a brick and mortar. The same PII that shows up in these places that nobody planned for, uh, it presents a serious challenge. So when you have those tags in place, when you have policy based on tags, new data is going to inherit that protection the minute it's classified. So when you have this output, you'll be able to tag any type of columns, and then in the next step, you'll be able to assign those policies. So you're not going to have any backlog. There's no governance debt. And as I click into collections here, you'll see what really is a powerful differentiator. So the classifiers that you set and alter can be reusable. So we ship with a managed library of different common PII, PCI, PHI patterns. So think emails, phone numbers, social security, payment info, loyalty IDs. All of this can be used from our managed library, right? This is what you see here. You can see some different combinations of patterns that sprawl across those different areas of sensitive data. Or you can choose to extend that managed library and actually create your own custom classifiers. So here you can layer in a series of different rules so you can account for exactly the type of data ecosystem you need. So if you have specific membership numbers, for example, you can specify the pattern of data, some metadata classifiers like column or name, and you can see some additional options here based on content type, excuse me, as well as location, right? So once you create either your own custom classifiers or choose to leverage the managed out of the box classifiers, you can create your collections. They can then be deployed at scale automatically, reused across all your different databases. So once that data is found and tagged, the next step is to protect it. So we're going to jump into the policy module here. Now, this is where Alter really differs from native protection. So think masking inside of Snowflake Horizon or Databricks through Unity Catalog, any single platform. Here, Alter is going to provide a variety of different flavors of policy protection. They can be tag based, as we've touched on already, completely platform agnostic. So you can have different styles of protection for your specific governance use case. The same governance rule that you set here will then be applied across your different OLAP systems or OLTP. So think Snowflake, Databricks, Postgres, SQL Server, wherever that customer PII lives, you set the policy and alter, and it'll meet that protection at the data layer. And this is really critical for retail. You never have one audience for this type of data. You have analysts, they're going to be running their different churn models. You have marketing, they have their campaigns. Data scientists are going to be operating within their ML world, and agencies, whether internal or third party, they're going to be running media, right? All of them need different views. So I'll show you what one of these unified policies look like. So for example, here I have a tag-based policy built on Snowflake, and it's meant to target many different PII tag values. So say you have a finance analyst or a BA, they can see partial redaction of a phone number. You have a customer service stakeholder, they see the full number, they see plain text. Maybe you have data scientists, they're running models on these PII, these customer insight tables. They're going to see nulls because they don't need that data to train their model, right? So you have least privilege that's going to always be enforced. So you have multiple roles here from one tag-based rule statement, multiple roles accounted for, one tag, you're going to have curated views. So once query time comes, queries are invoked, enforcement happens automatically. You don't need to duplicate data. You don't have to re-architect your existing SQL logic. Right. So the point here is role-aware governance that is at that data level. So you're not going to be, again, copying tables, maintaining any type of parallel data set for each one of your personas, for Nick who's in finance, for Patrick, who's in marketing, for Joe Schmo, who's on the data science side of the business. And for a retailer, as I'm sure many of you can attest to, that's the difference between a very clean data architecture and what becomes an inevitable maintenance nightmare. So as I edit this policy, you'll see how easy it is to make these types of all-encompassing target policies. Again, this one's tag driven. You can see different roles here live within Snowflake, either default or custom, specifying tag name and value, or perhaps just tag name, specifying the value of that tag. So we have PII like customer location. That could be addresses. That could be states, cities they live in. And as I scroll down, you'll see different type of time boxing or volume boxing rules as well, or sub rules where you can block individuals based on the volume of data they're trying to uh, query, right? Perhaps on the time as well. And then, very important point of inflection here, least privilege is going to be automatically enforced. So unless explicitly specified, roles that do not have permissions stated that are touching a policy, or excuse me, I should say a tag that is associated with the policy, will not be able to see plain text, right? They'll return with nulls. So I'm going to pause momentarily to actually show you what this looks like in practice. And the interest of not having you watch me fat finger a series of different queries here, I've gone ahead and created a quick little workflow that has been recorded to show you what this looks like in Snowflake, for example. So we had that tag-based policy that specified behavior of marketing and finance users. Here in Snowsite, I'm querying my customer table as a marketing user. I see full plain text of phone number, partial redaction for social security number. Now, if I go ahead and query this as a finance user, per that policy created in Alter, you can see now I have partial redaction of phone number, full plain text view of social security number, right? So we have these views of the data that are tailored to the individual or that function of your business. And one point to call out here is this email column. So this looks like an email address. It's the same shape, it's the same length, it's the same data type, but it's actually encrypted. Snowflake is going to treat it as text. Your BI tool is going to treat it as text, or treat it as an email, I should say. Any of your downstream analytics pipelines, right? It's going to be treated as an email. Your joins still work. The matching, as Nick called out, still works. The journey of that data across your loyalty, your web, your POS, all that's functional, but the value is unreadable without a key that Alter generates and protects on your behalf. So Alter generates a cryptographic key that, in combination with the plain text, will produce through an algorithm that ciphertext you see here, but it maintains its utility, right? You can still infer that this is an email, but it's protected. So this is the concept of format preserving encryption. Incredibly powerful. It protects that plain text, but it's not going to break down the utility. It's going to be encrypted at rest. That protection is going to travel with it. When you replicate your database, it stays encrypted. If you stand up a separate account, you share with a team internally, it's going to stay encrypted. And then within Alter, you can specify who has the permission to decrypt it. So as I run this here, you'll see as a marketing manager, it's important for them to have that email address. They see the plain text email. And Nick had also covered tokenization. So tokenization takes advanced protection a step further beyond format preserving encryption. And it does so by generating a completely random token. So the actual value, the sensitive data, is never going to sit in your analytics environment at all. It's going to be replaced, as you see here, with a token. The original plain text is going to live in a separate, isolated vault within Alter's protected boundary. So within our PCI DSS level 1 compliant vault, We take the plain text, we exchange through the token with you, excuse me. So you can see here, again, just as decryption is controlled in Alter via policy, as is detokenization. If you specify who can see plain text and reverse that token, they'll be able to do so. So our finance users in this case can. So this is really important, this tokenization piece, because I think retail amongst all the other industries, I think are the most engaged in sharing of data, right? Actively sharing data with agencies. And this is first party customer data, media buyers, research firms, right? AI vendors. Every one of those handoffs, that's a potential customer data leak. Tokenization is going to shrink that risk to nearly zero. You're going to tokenize, you can share the data, the partner gets that data set. It's analytically rich, it still sees plain text where they're permitted, but the tokens are going to stay intact and they're consistent, they're deterministic. So they're not going to break those joins, as is the case when you have a format preserving encryption deployed as well. So you don't have to choose between data utility and data exposure. With Alter, you get both. And then I did also want to speak to our alerting capability that I touched on earlier. So this is what we call rate limiting or just alerting. It's another policy type or subtype in Alter. So when you apply your masking, encryption, your tokenization, you can also put guardrails on volume or of time of the data. So you can see here, I tried to exceed a volume block as a marketing user from the Alter platform. We get our alert. That user is blocked until we resolve this alert. They've been detained. I can then add commentary on it, right? Engage in discourse with whatever security stakeholders I need to internally. And then in a click of a button, I can resolve that. So this is going to catch patterns that traditional protection can't, because a legitimate user may be doing something illegitimate and not by uh, intent, right? Not intentionally. So once you resolve that alert, that user is no longer detained. As you see here, they're back in Snowflake's Snow site here, but this could be in a BI tool, right? And they can then see the plain text, right? So these three protection techniques come from Alter, are one policy layer. All of that is enforced at query time. So in the remainder of the time here on the demo, I'm going to jump back into the platform and focus more on the actual monitoring piece. So actually proving that all these different policies are working as intended. So clicking first into our dashboard view, this is an operational view. Every query against that governed data, that customer PII in real time is going to be tracked. We have different purpose-built views and widgets based on data source, whether it's more of a transactional repository or a cloud data platform like Snowflake. Your data security team is going to be able to look at volume, top users, queries by source, any type of anomalous activity. This is what that continuous monitoring looks like. It's not some type of quarterly report. This is a live pulse. So you can constantly look at this view and understand, again, is your intended controls being deployed as necessary, right? Is there any malicious behavior, any misuse, understanding things and remediating them before potential exfiltration. And then the last module here is audit logs. This is going to provide you more of a traditional list view, sort of a full forensic record behind your data activity. So you'll have a breadcrumb trail, an immutable breadcrumb trail of your user, their role, where did they source their query? So IP, what SQL did they use? What columns did they touch? Are they sensitive? Are they protected by policy? Right? So this is incredibly important for the regulators, of course. When an auditor has a question, any type of consumer has a trust concern. Here you have that evidence from this central log view. You can filter down to narrow the scope of your investigation to expedite your efforts, right? So for retailers, this is what turns an audit from a multi-week scramble into an on-demand export. So you can have this list view. You can even generate your own audit report that you have tailored to a particular need, whether that's an internal adjudication or a third-party regulator, an external regulatory body. All of this is within the Alter Control Center, right? So just to sort of bring it back to where we started, I think most of your customers are going to be worrying about protection of their data. Any type of traditional response with masking can, while it protects some of the problem, it doesn't account for the full equation. You need the full experience, if you will, to protect data wherever it lives. You need the advanced encryption, the tokenization, the monitoring capability, all from a single UI. That way, customers don't worry in the first place. And in the event there is an issue, you are able to remediate it without serving as a bottleneck to your business. So Alter is different in that sense, where we can provide both protection as well as monitoring. It's an amalgamation of both worlds. So you're not again trading, trust for, your brand experience, if you will. So with the remainder of the time, I think we'd like to jump into some Q&A here. So Nick, I will relinquish control here and pass the mic back to you.
Of course, and thank you, Patrick, for walking us through that. It's great to see the Alta platform and just the technology behind the solution, the challenges these retailers are facing. But to open up the questions, looks like we already have a few already. And if anyone else has any other questions, please just drop them in the chat. But Patrick, we'll really get your opinion on this first one, and I can share my thoughts as well if we have time. But the first question is, how do organizations decide when to use tokenization versus format preserving encryption?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. And I alluded to this a little bit in the demo, but a very simple rule is opt for format preserving encryption when you're staying within your internal systems. So the systems that your teams are analyzing their loyalty data in, any type of BI, there you're going to be able to protect plain text from those internal stakeholders within those authorized environments, but you're not going to have to re-architect any of the joins, any of the underlying database logic. And I would say tokenization is best suited for when data is in transit. So if it's leaving your purview, your uh, data perimeter, it's going to an agency, a partner, some type of dev
Mhm.
environment, right, from a vendor. It's going to be protected, and even in the event that that token is exfiltrated, they can't do anything with it. There's zero inference without the key that Alter protects. They will never get that plain text. So it greatly shrinks the risk. It mitigates the risk. It also controls the scope of the regulators, excuse me, that are going to be knocking on your door monthly, quarterly, certainly annually.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I totally agree with you. To your point, if you need the data to stay within your own environment and keep working for analytics, FPE is usually the right call. And if you're sharing data, to your point, with either like third parties or outside your walls, tokenization gives you that stronger separation you need. Looks like we have time for at least one more question. We have here, Patrick. I know you
Sure.
touched on this during the demo as well, but how does this impact AI and machine learning initiatives that rely on customer data?
Yeah. So the advanced protection that Alter provides removes, I would say, the biggest blocker, and that's that your data science team, right? Anyone that's building your AI ML workloads, they're getting basically no's across the board from security when they need data to create their models.
Mhm.
Without Alter, a lot of data science teams are going and finding some type of synthetic data. They're using either a tool or doing it themselves, and they're pushing in these perhaps unsanctioned copies of data into their models to try to replicate the real customer journey. And that obviously poses a lot of different challenges. The real data is always the better move when possible. So with Alter, whether you're using FPE or tokenization, the model is going to be able to see the relationships of those columns to the larger data set. So say, a customer bought this item, then they bought within this product category, but then they haven't bought in 6 months. All that data is still going to tell that story, but that particular column or series of columns are going to be protected. And you're still going to be able to track what queries were run on that data. So in other words, certain sensitive data is protected, but it's not going to break the joining the different entity relationships within that data that the model needs to actually tell that customer journey uh, coherently. And I think this is a problem that we're seeing already show up. It's going to matter more and more as time goes on. These agents are operating on your behalf. It's important not to build a completely separate governance program or paradigm for AI. Instead, you should
Hmm.
extend the one you already have. In fact, we did a webinar, I think just last month, Nick, where we talked specifically about governing AI agents within this new era. It's very important that these agents, they're tied back to an individual's role and their respective governance policy of that user, right? So identity attribution is going to be a continue to be a mission critical part of adopting AI and making sure that your security can account for what these agents are doing.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and that brings us right to time. So I'd just like to thank, Patrick for joining us and obviously walking us through the demo, and obviously everyone who joined the webinar. If this is a problem or challenge your team is facing, feel free to visit our alter.com or just reach out to either of us directly.